They refused to let me sit in the family funeral row. My husband said, "You're not related by blood. Sit in the back." I held the flowers I brought for his uncle and cried alone. But when the will was read and my name came up first, I married Tom in 2011, but we'd been together for 5 years before that. At first, it felt like I was finally finding a place where I could settle down, belong. His family was close-knit, tight in the way that sometimes felt warm and sometimes suffocating. His mom ran the show, his two sisters followed her lead, and Tom, well, he mostly tried to stay out of the drama. Uncle Ray was different. He was the only one from Tom's side who didn't make me feel like I had something to prove. From the start, he treated me like I belonged. He never made me feel like the outsider the way the rest of them subtly did. One time early on, I was helping him fix something at his place. He bought the wrong size of air filter for his HVAC system, and I offered to return it and get the right one. And when I came back, he looked at me and said, "You've got more heart than some of the blood in this family." That stuck with me. It still does. Tom's mom barely hid her dislike for me. She never said anything outright, but she had this way of making me feel small. She'd act like she was being helpful, like telling me how to properly fold napkins for a real dinner, or asking if my family ever did things this way when we'd host Christmas. I'd smile, bite my tongue, try to fit in. But nothing was ever enough. His sisters followed suit, fake smiles, whispered comments they thought I couldn't hear. Over time, I started distancing myself from them. I went to family events because I had to, not because I wanted to. Then Uncle Ray got sick. Pancreatic cancer. It was fast and brutal. Tom visited, once early on. I don't know why he didn't go more. He'd always had a soft spot for Ray growing up, but maybe life just got too busy. Or maybe he thought someone else would pick up the slack. I couldn't stay away, though. Ray needed help, and no one else seemed to be showing up. I did. I brought him soup, I cleaned his apartment, I picked up his prescriptions, I sat with him through treatments. He never asked for much, but when he did, I was there. I remember once, near the end, he looked at me and said, "You're the only one who actually gives a damn." He wasn't being dramatic. It was just the truth. The day of the funeral was miserable. Cold, gray, windy. Tom didn't say much on the drive over. He just stared out the window. I had a small bouquet of white lilies in my lap. Ray loved them. It felt like the last thing I could do for him. When we got to the church, Tom didn't wait for me. He walked in ahead and joined his family in the front row. I assumed I'd be sitting next to him. I wasn't expecting any grand welcome, but I figured, after everything, I could at least grieve beside my husband. I was wrong. As I approached the front, Tom turned to me and said, in this cold, flat tone, like he wasn't even embarrassed, like it was just a fact, "You're not related by blood. Sit in the back." I felt like I'd been slapped. There were people watching. Some turned away, pretending not to hear. A few looked right at me with pity in their eyes. I just stood there holding the flowers I brought, unsure what to do. Then I turned around, walked to the back pew, and sat down alone. I cried quietly during the service. Not just for Ray, but for everything. For how small and invisible I felt. For the way Tom didn't even glance back at me. For how I'd been treated like a stranger in a family I'd been part of for over a decade. After the service, we went to the burial. Again, I stood to the side alone. No one offered a hand or a kind word. I placed the lilies on Ray's casket myself. I whispered a goodbye and walked away. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. A few days later, I got a call from Ray's lawyer. He told me there would be a reading of the will and that Ray had made it clear I was supposed to be there. Tom never mentioned it. I doubt he planned to. Maybe he thought I'd just disappear. I showed up at the lawyer's office in the same black dress. Tom and his sisters were already seated. His mother didn't even acknowledge me. The lawyer started reading the will. It began like most do, basic legal stuff. Then came the actual bequests. Tom and his sisters sat up straighter, like they were waiting for their reward. Their faces told me they were expecting the house, the money, everything. But then the lawyer said my name. First. Ray left me his house, his car, his savings, his personal belongings, everything that mattered. To Tom and the rest, he left a few signed baseball cards and an old bookshelf. Tom exploded. What the hell is this? She's not even family. The lawyer didn't flinch. Mr. Kennedy was clear. He said she was the only one who was there when it mattered. He considered her family.
By choice.
I didn't say a word. I just sat there and watched their faces crumble. After the will was read, no one spoke to me. Tom stormed out of the lawyer's office without a word, slamming the door so hard behind him that the receptionist jumped. His sisters followed, whispering furiously. His mother stayed seated for a moment longer, just staring at me with this look I can only describe as pure hatred. Then she stood, adjusted her coat like she was brushing off filth, and left without saying a word. I sat there for a while after they were gone. The lawyer gave me some documents, told me what I'd need to do to take over the property, the accounts, everything Ray had left me. I nodded, thanked him, and walked out of there feeling numb. When I got home, Tom was already there. He was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking. He didn't look up when I walked in. "You need to give it back," he said after a few minutes of silence. I just stared at him. Give what back? You know what? The house. The money. That should have gone to his family. I was his family. No, you weren't. You married into it. That's not the same. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man, my husband, was telling me, after years together, after everything I'd done for his uncle, that none of it counted. That I was just what? A placeholder? A convenience? You weren't even there for him, I said quietly. You visited him twice. I was there every week. I cleaned up after him when he couldn't move. I sat with him when he cried. That doesn't make you family, he snapped. I packed a bag that night and went to stay with a friend. I needed space. I needed to think. I didn't tell Tom where the key to Ray's house was. I didn't tell him I'd already signed the paperwork with the lawyer. I didn't tell him I had full access to Ray's accounts. I didn't tell him anything. The next few weeks were ugly. Tom tried to get me to negotiate. He brought up sharing the inheritance. When I refused, he got nasty. He accused me of manipulating a dying man. He said I must have coached Ray into writing me into the will. He started spreading rumors to his family and our mutual friends. Told them I schemed my way into getting everything. That I took advantage of a sick old man. A few friends pulled away. Some of his relatives started calling me. One even left a voicemail calling me a gold-digging whore. I thought about giving in. I really did. There were nights I couldn't sleep, wondering if maybe I had done something wrong. If maybe I had crossed some invisible line. But then I'd remember the way Ray smiled when I brought him fresh laundry. The way he'd squeeze my hand when he was too weak to talk. The way he once told me, "You're the only one who shows up." Tom wasn't done, though. He filed for separation. Then he hired a lawyer and tried to contest the will. Said Ray wasn't of sound mind when he wrote it. Tried to argue that I exerted undue influence. His lawyer sent me letters demanding I step down as beneficiary. But Ray's will was solid. It had been written and notarized months before he took a turn for the worse. Witnessed.
Clean.
The lawyer told me he'd anticipated pushback and had made everything airtight. Still, Tom wouldn't stop. He showed up at the house one day, Ray's house, drunk. Started banging on the door, screaming that it was his uncle's home, and I had no right to be there. I didn't let him in. I called the police. They gave him a warning. That was when I realized Tom didn't just want the house or the money. He couldn't handle the fact that I was chosen. That Ray had looked at all of them, his blood relatives, and decided I was the one who had earned a place in his life.
Not them.
And it broke something in him. But I wasn't finished either. I thought it would end with the legal fight, with the screaming, with the threats. But Tom wasn't finished, and neither was his family. About 2 months after the will reading, I started getting strange mail at Ray's house. No return address, just envelopes filled with old photos of Tom and his family, Christmases, birthdays, vacations. Notes scribbled in the margins. This is who really mattered to Ray. Another envelope came with a printout of my parents' bankruptcy filing from 15 years ago, circled in red. Maybe this is why you attached yourself to a dying man's money. It was petty, targeted. Not illegal, but enough to rattle me. Then came the real blow. I got a letter from the county clerk. A civil suit. Tom's mother had filed for equitable interest in Ray's estate. She was claiming that because Ray lived rent-free on a property she once co-signed for. Something I'd never even heard of, she was entitled to partial ownership of anything Ray left behind. She argued that since Ray hadn't paid her back when he refinanced, his assets should be used to repay family debt. It was insane. The lawyer handling Ray's estate said it was a stretch, but not impossible to drag out in court. It didn't stop there. Someone at Tom's office, HR maybe, must have gotten wind of the drama. He was placed on leave pending an investigation into domestic conduct concerns. I hadn't reported anything, but someone had. My guess? One of the neighbors who heard him shouting outside Ray's house that night. Or maybe one of the cops who filed the noise complaint.
He blamed me.
He showed up again, this time at my job. Security had to escort him out. After that, I filed for a restraining order. It wasn't granted the first time, but the second time. After Tom slashed one of my tires in broad daylight and got caught on a neighbor's ring cam, I got it. I wanted to disappear. I considered selling the house and moving somewhere far away. But I didn't. Not because I wanted the house. I didn't care about the bricks or the property value. I stayed because Ray wanted me to have it. Because I had earned it, and I wasn't going to let them erase that. Then another twist. While organizing Ray's storage unit, something I had avoided for weeks, I found a box of old letters. Most were from family, but one set caught my attention. They were from Tom's mother. Over a dozen letters spanning a decade, each one more manipulative than the last. Things like, "You're still keeping the money from that settlement, right? I need help covering Melissa's tuition. Your family, Ray. Don't let her turn you against us. We're blood. If you don't change your will back, don't expect us at your funeral." They were dated before Ray even got sick. He had kept them. He'd even annotated a few in pencil. On one, he wrote, "If family means leverage, I want none of it." I gave those letters to the estate lawyer. They weren't just personal, they were proof of coercion. When Tom's mom's claim went to court, the judge saw them. Her case was thrown out in less than 10 minutes. She cried in the hallway afterward. Real tears. The kind you only shed when your games finally catch up with you.
Tom, though?
He didn't cry. He didn't speak to me again. After the court dismissed his mother's claim, things went quiet for a while. Tom stopped showing up. No more letters, no more screaming at my door. But the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like someone biding their time. I kept going. I fixed up Ray's house. Got the roof redone. Replaced the furnace. Painted the walls. Not because I wanted to live in luxury, like Tom's family accused, but because I wanted to preserve something that mattered. Something I had earned. Not just through a legal document, but through years of quiet care and loyalty no one else ever bothered to show. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from a woman named Danielle. She introduced herself as someone who used to know Tom. I almost hung up until she said, "You don't know me, but I think you should." Turns out, Danielle had been seeing Tom for almost 8 months. He told her he was going through a rough divorce with a manipulative gold digger who stole his family inheritance. Said I'd seduced his dying uncle to get his house. She didn't believe him, not after she did some digging and found the court filings, the restraining order, and eventually, the will online. She said, "I thought you should know who he really is. I'm done with him. But I thought you deserved the full picture." I thanked her. Then I did something I hadn't done in a while. I made a plan. Ray had left me access not only to his estate, but also to a private folder on his computer labeled Family Affairs. In it, I found more than letters. I found documents, financial ones. Records that showed years of loans Ray had given Tom. $5,000 here, $2,000 there. A $15,000 wire transfer in 2016 labeled Emergency Home Repair. Another $7,500 in 2019 marked Business Startup. None of it was repaid. None of it acknowledged by Tom. But every single one had been logged, signed, and archived. I took those documents to my attorney. We filed a civil claim against Tom for repayment of debts owed to the estate. With interest, it totaled just over $52,000. His response was predictable: denial, rage, more accusations. But the paper trail was clear. The court ordered him to pay it back in full or face wage garnishment. When his employer got the court order, he was let go. Not because of the garnishment, but because the lawsuit drew attention to his prior HR investigation. Apparently, he'd been lying about his leave status, too. Then I sent one final letter to his mother. In it, I included copies of her own letters to Ray. The ones where she begged, manipulated, and guilt-tripped him for money, loyalty, control. I didn't add any commentary. I just wrote one line. You told me I wasn't family. Ray disagreed. And now, so does the law. After that, I never heard from any of them again. It's been a year now. I still visit Ray's grave every Sunday. I planted lilies around the headstone. I sit there with a cup of coffee and just talk quietly. Not because I believe in ghosts, but because I believe in honoring the people who showed up, who chose me when they didn't have to. And that house, I kept it, but I didn't live in it. I turned it into transitional housing for women leaving abusive marriages. Ray would have liked that. He always said, if you've got something good, share it with someone who needs it more. I never got an apology from Tom. Not that I expected one. He lost his marriage, his job, and his reputation. He lost the right to stand in that front funeral row he was so proud of. All because he couldn't stand that someone like me, someone he thought didn't matter, ended up being the only one who truly did. And that was the real revenge.